Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We are holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Vav, and we will be learning today Mirz Hashem Daf Kuf Vav Amid Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchas Sukkah, and we pick up today in Siman Taf Reish Lamed Tes in the midst of Siv Zayin, on the very top of Kuf Vav Amid Aleph, with the words of the Remah. And Mirz Hashem, today we will be finishing the very, very enjoyable Siman of Taf Reish Lamed Tes, which have been the dinim of the mitzvah of Yeshivas HaSukkah, the details of the mitzvah of living, eating, sleeping in the Sukkah. Now, we pick up on the very top line of Kuf Vav Amid Aleph, but let's just remember what the Mechaber said here in Siv Zayin. I'll just read quickly the words of the Mechaber from the beginning of Siv Zayin, 2 lines from the bottom of Kuf Hey Amid Beis. If somebody was sleeping in the Sukkah of Yardu Gishamim Balayla and it started raining in the middle of the night, so the person got up and he went into the house, which is proper. And then the rain stopped. Says the Mechaber, we are not matriachim. We don't bother this person to say that he has to get up when the rain stops and go back outside to the Sukkah. Ella, rather, Yoshein bebeisai, he could sleep in his house ad sheyale amud hashachar, until it's morning. He could sleep all the way until the morning. Now on that, the Ramah continues, and the Ramah says ad sheyale amud hashachar, until dawn comes up, haga v'yeyer mishanasai, and this person wakes up. In other words, what the Ramah wants to say over here, if you take a look in Mishnah Berurah, Ois Cotton Mem Gimel on Kuf Vav Amid Aleph, V'yeyar Mishanasai, Pirush Me'atzmai. The explanation of the Ramah, when the Ramah says V'yeyar Mishanasai, the Ramah is going back on the Mechaber. The Mechaber said he could sleep. The person who went back into the house because of the rain, he could sleep the entire night until dawn. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what that means is, the person will wake up by dawn. The light will start to come into the house and he'll wake up. When he wakes up, he wakes up. Pirish me'atzmai. It means that he'll wake up on his own. Ve'ein tzarech lahakitzai. The Mechaber did not mean, when the Mechaber says that you could sleep until dawn, he didn't mean that somebody must wake you up at dawn, because at dawn you have to get out of bed in the house. You're not allowed to be sleeping in the house anymore. No, you could sleep until you wake up. Pashtus, you'll wake up at dawn. If you don't wake up at dawn and you sleep a little bit later, that's fine. And the Mishnah Berurah continues and he says, somebody doesn't have to wake him up. Nor does the person have to tell somebody, listen, do me a favor, wake me up at the crack of dawn, because I can't sleep past dawn. No. Once you went into the house and you went to sleep, you could sleep until you wake up. Excuse me. Now, before we go weiter, what exactly is the p'tur? We had 2 halachas here on Kuf Hey Amid Beis. We had the halacha of somebody who was eating in the sukkah and then got chased out because of the rain. And we said, if it stops raining, you're not mechuyev to go back out to the sukkah. Or somebody came home to sit down to the Suda and it was pouring outside, so he started eating in the house, and then the rain stopped, he's not mechuyev to go back out to the sukkah. Somebody went to sleep in the house because it was raining, now the rain stopped, he's not mechuyev to go back out to the sukkah. Somebody was sleeping in the sukkah, he got woken up because of the rain, he went into the house, he went to sleep, he's not mechuyev to get back up and go back out to the sukkah if the rain stops. Why not? The p'tur of not eating in the sukkah during the rain, well, it's mitzvah, and also it's not teshu kein taduru. You don't live in a house where it's raining in the house. The p'tur not to sleep in the sukkah in the rain is also the same p'tur. It's mitzvah, and it's also not teshu kein taduru. But why is it that when it stops raining, you're not mechuyev to go back out to the sukkah? Why not? It's not raining anymore, so now you have a chiv sukkah. Go back out to the sukkah. The lashon of the Mechaber in Siv Vav is Haya oichel b'sukkah v'yardu geshamim v'halach lebeisa v'pasku ha-geshamim ein mechayevin oisai lachzer l'sukkah. We're not mechayev him. We don't obligate him to go back out to the sukkah. Why not? The lashon of the Mechaber in Siv Zayin, when somebody was sleeping, Ein matrichin oisai lachzor l'sukkah kol oisei alayla. We're not matriach him. We don't trouble him to go back out to the sukkah. Again, why not? So the lashon of the Aruch HaShulchan is very, very beautiful. The lashon of the Aruch HaShulchan is v'taima de milsa. The reason for this halacha, nirali, says the Mechaber of the Aruch HaShulchan, he says, it appears to me, ta'akol nichlal b'teishvu ke'ein taduru. The entire basis of this halacha is a furtherance of the concept of teishvu ke'ein taduru. De'ein derech ha'adam kisha oichel chutz lebeisai. It's not the derech of a person who's eating outside of his house for some reason, lahafsik be'emtza suda, to interrupt himself in the middle of his meal, v'leilech lebeisai ligmar suudasai, and then to get up and go into the house to finish the meal. Ve'ein derech ha'adam, and it's not the normal way of a person, kishayashin chutz lebeisai, if he's sleeping outside of his house for some reason, lokum be'emtza alayla, to get up in the middle of the night, leilech lishan lebeisai, to go get up and go to his house to go to sleep. Elamantin achiyar, he waits until it's morning, v'yaketz mishinasai, and he's up now for the day, he gets up from his sleep, and that's when he goes back to his house. The concept and the chiyuv of teishu ke'ein taduru means that in all manner you comport yourself with the sukkah the way you would comport yourself in your house. If for some reason you went to a local hotel to go to sleep overnight and you happen to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're not going to get up, get dressed, and go home. You booked a hotel room for the night, you're going to be in the hotel overnight, in the morning you're going to get up and you're going to leave. If you left your house for some reason in the middle of the night, if there was a flood or something else, and you left your house in the middle of the night, you're not getting up in the middle of the night, going back to your house, going back to sleep. You left for the night, you left for the night. If you're eating a meal outside, you're having a barbecue outside in the backyard, normally, unless there's a specific reason why you're doing it, you're not going to get up in the middle of the meal and go back into the house and finish the meal in the house. You're going to eat your meal outside, and then you'll come in. Same thing by the sukkah. If you had to interrupt your meal for some reason when you were in the sukkah and you went back inside your house, Teishvu Ke'ein Taduru says, now you stay where you are. Same thing with your sleep. If you had to interrupt your sleep because of the rain and you left the sukkah, you went into the house, Teishvu Ke'ein Taduru says you don't get up in the middle of the night and go back out to the sukkah. That would not be Teishvu Ke'ein Taduru. And it's very important to understand this for what we're going to see weiter. Okay. Now let's go weiter in the Remah. Top line. Mishu Yashen, top line Kuvav Amud Aleph. Mishu Yashen B'Sukkah. Somebody who's sleeping in the sukkah, the Yardu Geshamim, and now it starts to rain. Well, let's make a comparison to somebody who was eating in the sukkah and it started to rain. When it eats in the sukkah and it starts to rain, the Mechaber told us in Sif Vav that there's an amount of rainfall that allows you to leave the sukkah. What's that amount of rainfall? If you had a cooked dish in front of you and it would spoil your cooked dish, right? Even if it was only a tavshil shel pul, even if it was some bean-based dish which gets ruined very quickly by rain, right? If that's the amount of rainfall that's falling, that's when you're allowed to leave. And the Mishnah Berurah told us, the Remah I think told us, if you don't know, was it the Mishnah Berurah? Sorry, my apologies. I don't like when I forget these kind of things. It was in Sif Hay. Right? The Remah told us, if you don't know how to figure out that amount of rainfall, I don't know if it would spoil a cooked dish or not. So then the Remah said, what you do is yesha'er, you figure in your mind, im yordu kol kach shamim labayis, if this amount of rain was falling in the house, im hayoytze, would you leave the house? If you would leave the house, you leave the sukkah. But we see that when you're sitting outside in your sukkah, whether you're eating in the sukkah, or you're relaxing in the sukkah, or you're learning in the sukkah, you don't necessarily leave the sukkah the moment a couple of drops start falling. Now, if you're learning in the sukkah, and you're afraid that your svarim are going to get ruined, yeah, you're going to get up right away and you're going to go inside. But if you're sitting and relaxing in the sukkah, or if you're eating in the sukkah, you have to look at that amount of rainfall. Is it appropriate yet to leave? How about when you're sleeping in the sukkah? You're sleeping in the sukkah, you wake up, it's raining. Are you mechuyev to try to figure out, is this an amount of rainfall that's appropriate for me to leave the sukkah or not? So the Remah says, Mishu yoshed b'sukkah v'yardu geshamim. If somebody is sleeping in the sukkah and it starts to rain, ein tzarech lishta'er b'chtei sheyiskal kal hatavshil. You don't have to try to reckon sich, is this an amount of rain that would ruin my cooked dish? The begishamim mu'atim have itzar lishain sham. Because once you have even a minute amount of rain, it's already mitzvah. You can't sleep when it's raining, even if it's raining a tiny drop. V'yuchal lotzes, and you're allowed to leave. So says the Remah. Now says the Remah weiter, and this is a klal that we all know. V'chol ha-potter min ha-sukkah. Anybody who's potter from the mitzvah of sukkah, let's say because of mitzvah. You don't have a chiv of sukkah right now. It's mitzvah, it's raining. V'chol ha-potter min ha-sukkah, ve'eno yoytze misham. Somebody is sitting eating a suda inside the sukkah. It starts to rain. I don't know if I should leave yet. It starts to rain harder. I don't know if I should leave yet. Starts to pour. And people get up and they go inside. I don't want to go inside. I don't want to leave the sukkah. Says the Remah, anybody who is legitimately potter from sukkah and he does not leave the sukkah, schar, he does not receive any schar for sitting in the sukkah. And this is only foolishness. The fact that he's staying in the sukkah now, says the Remah, it's sheer foolishness. You have a p'tur of mitzvah. Right now you don't belong in the sukkah. What are you doing staying in the sukkah when you're mitzvah? Get out of the sukkah. This is only foolishness that you're staying in the sukkah. And certainly, schar you're not going to get. If you're staying in the sukkah, you're not probbing some kind of frumkeit that you're going to get schar for. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut mem daled. V'chol ha-potter. Anybody who's potter from sukkah. What kind of p'tur are we talking about? Kigoyin b'mitzvah. For example, somebody who's mitzvah. It's raining in the sukkah. Or it's boiling hot in the sukkah and the guy pashut can't take it. I'm not talking about somebody who says, look, I'm not hot. If you're not hot, so then you're not a mitzvah. But if you are hot, if you're sitting there sweating buckets and you can't take it, then get up and go inside. There's no milah to stay in the sukkah. Uprate dinim mitzvah, and the Mishnah Berurah tells us that the details of this p'tur of mitzvah, yavur lekamon b'siman taf reish mem, will be explained in greater detail in siman taf reish mem ayin sham. Now, there's a very interesting biur halacha over here. Biur halacha dimar amascha v'chol ha-potter min ha-sukkah. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Zeh klal, this rule that if you're potter from the sukkah, there's no milah in staying in the sukkah, and Adarab it said yoitis to stay in the sukkah. Zeh klal hu dafke b'mokayim sheyesh bo tzad iser. The Chavetz Chaim says this is true when staying in the sukkah is not only not a positive, not only are you not being mekayim a mitzvah by staying in the sukkah, but there's even a negative. By staying in the sukkah, you're doing something wrong. There's a tzad iser in staying in the sukkah. What's that case? Kemoi b'mitzvah. For example, by a mitzvah. The Chavetz Chaim tells me over here that when a mitzvah stays in the sukkah, not only is he not mekabel schar, not only is it not a milah, not only is it not a positive thing that he's doing by staying in the sukkah, not only that, it's a negative. He's doing something wrong by staying in the sukkah. Why? What's he doing wrong? Says the Chavetz Chaim, the heavy chilul yom tov. Because this is chilul yom tov to stay in the sukkah. Va'afilu b'chol hamoed, even if it's not yom tov proper, even if it's chol hamoed, chayiv lechabdoi. This is not covered yom tov. Is it covered Yom Tov? Yom Tov is supposed to be einig. Yom Tov is supposed to be pleasurable. Is this covered Yom Tov to stay in a sukkah when you're mitzvah? That's not covered Yom Tov. So the Chavetz Chaim is very stark. The Chavetz Chaim says it's chilul Yom Tov to stay in the sukkah. And that's why the Remah gives us this klal over here. And he says if you're potter and you don't leave, you're not mekabel schar. And not only that, it's hedyotis. It's foolishness. Because what you're doing is actually something wrong. You're being mechal yom tov. I don't mean being mechal yom tov in the manner of somebody who does a meleches iser on yom tov, but you're being mechal yom tov in that you're not being mechabed yom tov. They're supposed to be covered Yom Tov. You make a beautiful Suda. You're supposed to have Einig. But you're staying in the Sukkah when you're suffering? That, says the Chavetz Chaim, is Chil Yom Tov. Aval, however, continues the Chavetz Chaim in the Biur Halacha. Im Einoi Mitzvah, if the person is not Mitzvah, Rashoy Lahachmir. There's room for a Chumrah to be in the Sukkah when you're not strictly Chayev in Sukkah. Kemoy Rabban Gamliel, for example, like the case in the Gemara in Sukkah Chavav Amid Beis, Rabban Gamliel, shehichmer al atzmai, who was machmer on himself, b'deliyah shal mayim, when he was just using a bucket of water, he was just drinking water, v'amar ha'elum l'sukkah, and he said, bring the bucket into the sukkah so I could drink in the sukkah. And this is what we saw previously on the top of Kuf Daled Amud Aleph in the words of the Mechaber, where the Mechaber said, Umisha yachmir al atzmai, somebody who rules stringently for himself, v'lo yishteh chutz l'sukkah, and he doesn't drink out of the sukkah, afilu mayim, even water, harezeh meshubach. Now that is certainly the case of somebody who's pater min ha-sukkah. He's not chayiv to be in the sukkah. If all you're doing is drinking a drink of water, you're not chayiv in sukkah, according to any shita. You're not chayiv in sukkah. So do we apply this rule of the Remah? V'chala pater min ha-sukkah, ve'ena yoytze misham, eina mekabel of schar, ve'ena ela hedyoytes? No. There's room for a chumrah because whenever you're in the sukkah, you're being mekayim a mitzvah. So even if you're not chayiv, even if you're not obligated to be in the sukkah, but you want to go out to the sukkah and drink water, tavay alacha bracha. Why not? Go ahead. That's fine. We're not going to call you a fool. And we're not going to say that you're not makabel schar. You are makabel schar, just like Rabbi Gamliel. What the Ramah is talking about is when there's no chiyuv of sukkah, and not only that, you're wrong for staying in the sukkah. You're mitzvah in the sukkah. Then it's not only that you have a ptur, you don't belong there because it's chilul yom tov. You don't belong in the sukkah. So then, that's when this klal of the Ramah comes, that it's just foolishness to stay in the sukkah. Okay, now let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah. Let's go to Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton Mem Hey. The Ramah said it's foolishness to stay in the sukkah. Says the Mishnah Berurah Hedyotis, Kal v'chomer bazeh. Right now, the Ramah said somebody's mitzvah, he has a ptur from sukkah, he doesn't go out of the sukkah, so the Ramah said he's not mekabel schar, and it's considered ma'aseh hedyotis. It's considered foolishness to stay in the sukkah. Now comes the Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah makes a kal v'chomer to another case where it's not only foolishness to stay in the sukkah, but it's mamish and isser to stay in the sukkah. Says the Mishnah Berurah, kal v'chomer bazeh, somebody who wants to be machmir, somebody who wants to comport himself in a stringent fashion, when it's raining. He comes home from shul, and it's time for the Suda, and it's pouring outside. He wants to be machmir. He wants to go out to the sukkah. So if he eats in the sukkah right now, the Ramah said it's foolishness. But this guy's not finished with his foolishness. Look what he wants to do. So what he does is, v'leilech l'sukkah, he wants to go to the sukkah, ulevarich sham hamoitzi, he's going to wash and make his hamoitzi outside in the sukkah, ubirkas leishev basukkah, and he's going to make a bracha leishev basukkah outside in the sukkah, v'achakach lechel babayis, and then he's going to go eat in the house. Says the Mishnah Berurah, the heavy bracha of atala. This person is actually making a bracha of atala. He's being moitzi shem shamayim levatala. He's making a bracha levatala. Because how can you make a leishev? You have no chiyuv of sukkah. Now, like the Mefarsha point out, this is not talking about the first night. The first night, if it's raining, we said we make kiddush, we wash, we eat a kazayis menapas in the sukkah. But the Mishnah Berurah said even then we don't make a leishev. But then, according to some shittas on the first night, you could make a leishev. The Mishnah Berurah over here is talking about the other days and nights of sukkahs. It's raining outside. Nobody holds that you have a chiyuv in the sukkah. Mitzvah, you're pater min sukkah the rest of Yom Tov. So you go out to the sukkah, you make a leishev in the pouring rain, you're mamish making a bracha of atala. So not only is it foolishness, it's actually a bracha of atala. Afilu yoichal sham basukkah achilas kva. Even if you'll eat a sudas kva in the sukkah in the rain, it's still going to be a bracha of atala, this bracha that you made a leishev basukkah, because you have no chiyuv of sukkah. Says the Biur Halacha, let's take a look at the Biur Halacha, Dibra Maskel Hedyotis. Ayin be Mishnah Berurah, the Chavetz Chaim says, take a look at this Mishnah Berurah that we just learned, Sivkat and Memhei. The Kosav b'Sefer B'Kurei Yaakov, he quotes from the B'Kurei Yaakov. Nearly, the B'Kurei Yaakov says, it seems to me, this that we say, that if you eat in the sukkah when you have a ptur, it's foolishness and you're not makabel schar. We already saw one difference. We saw one difference already, and that was in the previous Biur Halacha, the Chavetz Chaim told me somebody who wants to drink water, so he's not chayiv in sukkah, and he goes out to the sukkah to drink water, even though he has a ptur, he's not chayiv in sukkah, it's not ma'aseh hedyotis, because there is an inyan to be in the sukkah as much as possible, and there is room for a chumrah to drink even water in the sukkah, like we see in the Gemara, in the Mishnah, by Rabbi Gamliel. Now, the Biur Halacha says another difference. Nearly, this that the Remah says that if you're in the sukkah when you're potter, it's foolishness and you're not makabel any schar. Zed dafka kishe potter be'ez hayeshiva. That's talking about a case where while you are eating in the sukkah, you are not being mekayim a mitzvah at all because you're potter ben sukkah. For kigoin shemitztar, like a mitzvah v'chadoimo or anything similar. So, if you go out to the sukkah and you're eating in the sukkah during the pouring rain, on the rest of sukkahs, not on the first night, you're not being mekayim any mitzvah at all. There's a complete tour from sukkah. You don't belong in the sukkah now. There's no mitzvah of yeshivas sukkah at all when you're sitting in the sukkah during the pouring rain. That's when the Remah says that it's foolishness and you're not makabel schar. But let's contrast this. First, the Biur Halacha says, "Ubefrat b'geshamim," and certainly when it's raining, you're not makabel schar and it's ma'aseh hedyotis. Kevin shem kishvichas kais al panav, because we're going to see later on that the Gemara compares that to somebody who's pouring a kais of yayin for his master, and his master takes the kais and throws it in his face. Because then the master is showing the servant that he mamish does not want his servitude. I don't want you doing anything for me. So chas v'chalila, somebody goes out to the sukkah in the rain. Who made it rain? The Rebbeinu Shalom is making it rain. So that means that right now, unfortunately, the Rebbeinu Shalom doesn't want our avdus. He doesn't want us to go be mekayim the mitzvah of sukkah. So you're going to go be an azpanim, you're going to go have the chutzpah, and you're going to go out to the sukkah and say, it's like the master threw the kais in the face of the servant, and the servant says, afal pikein, I'm going to pour another kais and I'm going to give it to you anyway, even though you don't want it. So the Rebbeinu Shalom says, I don't want your avdus right now, I don't want you in the sukkah, I'm making it rain, and you're going to go, I'm eating in the sukkah anyway. So certainly then it's hedyotis and you're not makabel schar. Rabbi hereloi she'ena roitze b'avdusai v'hu writes a lachuf rabbi. He wants to force the hand of his master la'avdai to serve him. She'en zeh derech eretz. That's b'chalal not derech eretz. Aval, however, let's contrast this to a different case. Mi she'poter mishum tircha lachzar l'sukkah. Let's say the cases that we had yesterday on Kuf Hey Amud Beis, Siv Vav and Siv Zayin. You were eating outside of the sukkah. It started raining. You left the sukkah. You went out to your house. Now you're in the house and you're eating the food in the house. Now your kid comes in and says, it stopped raining. Over there we said we're not mechayev you to go back out to the sukkah, right? And I explained at the beginning of this year, I read to you the Lashon of Yarach HaShulchan, that the basis for that p'tur is Teishvu Kein Taduru. The same way if you had been eating in your house and your meal got interrupted, you wouldn't go back to your house in the middle of the meal. If your meal got interrupted in the sukkah and you went to your house, you don't have to go back to the sukkah. We're not mechayev you to go back to the sukkah. But let's say you do go out to the sukkah, right? Let's say you say, I want to go out to the sukkah anyway. It's not raining. I want to go out to the sukkah. So you take your food, you go out to the sukkah, you sit back down in the sukkah, and you're eating in the sukkah. Okay, you weren't mechuyev to go back out to the sukkah, but you did go out to the sukkah. Now you're sitting in the sukkah. Are you mitzvah? No, it's not raining. Are you being mekayim teshu kein taduru right now when you're sitting in the sukkah? Yeah, you're using the sukkah in a perfectly normal way. because of Teshu came to Duru, you did not have a chiyuv to go back. But now that you went back, you are being Mekayim Teshu came to Duru, and you are being Mekayim the mitzvah of Sukkah. Therefore, says the Bir Halacha, Misha Potter Mishum Tercha Lachzer Sukkah, the person who had a Torah, he was exempt from having to return to the Sukkah because he left the Sukkah because of rain, and now it stopped raining, or it was raining in the middle of the night when he was sleeping in the Sukkah, so he got up, he went to the house, now he wakes up 3 o'clock in the morning and it's not raining and the Sukkah is beautifully dry. We're not matriach him to go back to the Sukkah. But now, this case where the rain stopped in middle of the Suda after he went into the house and started eating, or in middle of the night after he went back to the house and he went back to sleep, or we're going to have a case in Siman Taf Reish Mem. Somebody went to have his night Suda in the Sukkah, Yom Tov night, Shabbos night. He went to have his Yom Tov or Shabbos Suda outside in the Sukkah, and the wind came and blew out all of his neris. Now his Sukkah is pitch black. You can't eat in a pitch black Sukkah. So his Sukkah is not usable. He has a heter to leave his Sukkah and go into the house because of mitzvah. But his neighbor has a beautiful Sukkah with neris. Are we mechayiv him to go use his neighbor's Sukkah? No. The halacha is we are not mechayiv you to go use your neighbor's Sukkah. Why? Because that's not considered Teshu came to Duru, and that's also mitzvah. You're not comfortable eating by a stranger. If he's your best friend, if he's your brother, if he's your cousin, it's one thing. But if it's just a stranger, you're not comfortable. That's mitzvah. We're not mechayiv you to go to your neighbor's Sukkah. You have a heter, you could go eat in your house. But let's say you decide I am going to the neighbor. You ask the shayla, you're not mechayiv to go to the neighbor. You know what? I want to go to the neighbor anyway. So you go to the neighbor. Now you're sitting in the neighbor's Sukkah, and you're not inconveniencing your neighbor. Your neighbor is very happy to have you. Your neighbor says, we finished our Suda. Go ahead, use the Sukkah. So now you decided to go to your neighbor's Sukkah. You're eating in your neighbor's Sukkah. Are you being Mekayim Teshu Kei Tedur? Now, yeah, you're sitting and you're eating in a Sukkah. So you're being Mekayim Mitzvah Sukkah. So in those cases, says the Bir Halacha, Lozeh yesh kibul schar olav. We're not going to apply the Ramah's ruling that since you were potter, you're not Makabel schar. Why shouldn't you be Makabel schar? We only apply the Ramah's ruling. So what did we see so far? We apply the Ramah's ruling that it's Maisa Yotis and you're not Makabel schar when it's an avla that you're eating in the Sukkah because it's Chil Yom Tov, you're mitzvah, this is not covered Yom Tov, it's not Oinig Yom Tov. So then we apply the Ramah's ruling. We also apply the Ramah's ruling in a case when you simply are not being Mekayim the mitzvah when you're eating in the Sukkah. If it's pouring rain, you're not being Mekayim the mitzvah. So it's had yoitis and you're not Makabel schar. But in these cases that I just named, you went back out to the Sukkah when the rain stopped, even though you had a Torah and you didn't have to. But now that you did, of course you're Makabel schar. You're being Mekayim the mitzvah of Sukkah. Why not? Why should you be Makabel schar? And the Chavetz Chaim brings like a riot to this. The Chavetz Chaim says, this is no different again than Rama Gamliel, somebody who drinks water in the Sukkah. This person is mamish being Mekayim mitzvah Sukkah. Lechatchila, he wasn't mechuyev to go back to the Sukkah. But now that he did, he's mamish being Mekayim the mitzvah of Sukkah. Okay, we can stop over there with the Bir Halacha. Okay. Two very nice biurei halacha. Okay, now let's go weiter in the Ramah. Let's finish off this Ramah. 3 lines for the bottom near the end of the line. Says the Ramah, in these cases where you have a heter to leave the Sukkah, if it started raining in the middle of your Suda and you left, if it started raining in the middle of the night when you were sleeping in the Sukkah and you left, when you leave the Sukkah because of rain, you get chased out from the Sukkah chas v'chalila because of rain, al yivat v'yetze. Don't kick the Sukkah, even figuratively. Don't like run out of the Sukkah. Oh, Baruch Hashem, I can get out of here. Don't kick the Sukkah. Don't treat the Sukkah in a not nice way and go out. El yetze kenichna. You should go out in a very humble way, as somebody who was humbled by his master. Ke'eved, like a servant, shemoizik kais l'rabbi, who was pouring a kais for his master, u'shafakay al panav, and the master took it and threw it in his face. Ef shibach, I don't want your avdus. Okay, no Mishnah Berurah. Now, finally, let's go to the closing sif in this Siman Ches. Says the Mechaber, Noagu, we have the minig, she'ein mevarchim al hasukkah, that we don't make the bracha on the sukkah. We don't make a bracha of leishev basukkah, ela b'shas achila. We only make it at the time when we're going to sit down and eat in the sukkah. V'hachi nohug, and the Remah says, and indeed that is the minig. And here we have a very, very interesting, fascinating Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Memvav. Nohagu. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah explains the backstory of what's going on over here. Ritzaynai Loimar. What the Mechaber wants to say over here is, the Mechaber tells us it's our minig only to make a bracha b'shas achila. The clear implication is that really there are other times we can make a bracha too. So explains the Chavetz Chaim. Ritzaynai Loimar, what the Mechaber wants to say is, after Medina de Gemara l'das paiskim rishonim, even though strict halacha that flows from the Gemara, according to the paiskim rishonim, amongst them the Rif and others, kisheberech basukkah, when you make a leishev on the sukkah, v'yotza lasos inyanai v'loy lachzer tekef b'inyan chayi yitzia gemura, and then you go out of the sukkah and you didn't leave the sukkah. You went out to the sukkah, you made a leishev basukkah, now you went into the house to get the salt. You went into the house to get a sefer. But you didn't go out of the sukkah to leave the sukkah. It wasn't a yitzia gemura. V'im kain, I'm sorry, the other way. I said it wrong. Sorry, rewind. V'yotza lasais inyanai. You went out to the sukkah, you made a bracha on the sukkah, and now you left. V'yotza lasais inyanai. Now you left the sukkah to go do something else. Maybe you had to go take care of something. You had to run an errand. So you left the sukkah, you left the house, you got in the car, you're going someplace. V'loy lachzer tekef. You didn't walk out of the sukkah with intent to come right back. If you went to get a sefer, so you stepped out of the sukkah, you know you're coming right back. That's not what you did. Over here, you mamish left the sukkah yitzia gemura. Shahayu yitzia gemura. V'im kein hari hisiach daitoi min ha-mitzvah. So that you were mesiach das from the mitzvah. So what happened over here? You went into your sukkah to go eat breakfast. You made a leishev basukkah. You sat down, you ate breakfast, you benched. Now you're leaving the sukkah. You're going out. You don't plan on coming right back to the sukkah. So your yitzia, your leaving of the sukkah was a yitzia gemura. It was a real leaving of the sukkah, and you were mesiach das from the mitzvah. I'm finished. This act of mitzvah, of sitting in the sukkah and eating in the sukkah, is done. You're mesiach das from the sukkah. So now, if you come back to the sukkah, sarach levarach shenis, you have to make another bracha. Va'afilu mea pamim b'yayim. This is true even if you would do this 100 times during the day. Ve'ema shenichnas, and any time you come to the sukkah, afal pisha ena oichel sham, even if you're not going to eat in the sukkah, mevarech, you would have to make a bracha. Shaharei gama yeshiva v'ha'amida sham hi mitzvah. Because even just sitting in the sukkah or just standing around in the sukkah is a mitzvah, to have a ke'en taduru, because that is teshu ke'en taduru. So realize what the Chavetz Chaim, very key Chavetz Chaim over here, realize what the Chavetz Chaim just told me. The Chavetz Chaim said, you came home from shul in the morning, chalamoid, you went out to your sukkah, you're eating a sandwich, you're having some scrambled eggs and bread, you washed, you made a leishev basukkah, you sat, you ate your meal, you benched, now you're getting up and you're leaving the sukkah. So you get up, you go out of the sukkah, you left the sukkah, you were mesiach das. A half an hour later, you get up to go back to the sukkah, you don't bring any cake with you or anything else. You go back with a sefer, you want to sit, you want to chazer Mishnah Berurah in the sukkah, you go, you sit down in the Mishnah Berurah, with the Mishnah Berurah in the sukkah. Really, you should make a leishev basukkah, because you were mesiach das from the first leishev basukkah, and you're looking at me funny, you're saying you're not eating in the sukkah, you didn't bring a piece of cake out with you, doesn't matter, says the Chavetz Chaim, shaharei gam ha-yeshiva v'amida sham hi mitzvah, David came to duru. If I'm sitting and learning Mishnah Berurah outside in the sukkah, that's teshu kein taduru. I'm being mekayim a mitzvah. Not only that, If I bring a friend into the sukkah and I'm sitting with a friend in the sukkah and I don't give him any cake, I'm being mekayim a mitzvah. Teshu came to duru. The same way I would sit and shmooze with my chaver in the house in the living room. Now I'm sitting and shmoozing with my chaver in the sukkah. That's teshu came to duru. You're being mekayim a mitzvah. So really, you should make another leishev. And then if you leave the sukkah and you walk your friend to the car, and you left the sukkah without das that I'm going right back out to the sukkah, and now another friend pulls up, and now you go back out to the sukkah, you should make another leishev sukkah again. Because again you're going out to the sukkah, and again you're being mekayim mitzvahs in the sukkah. So says the Chavetz Chaim, really according to the Rishonim, the halacha that flows from the Gemara would be, even if you did this 100 times during the day, every time you go out to the sukkah, when you were already mesiach das from the first time or from the time before that you went out to the sukkah, you should make another leishev, because each time you're being mekayim mitzvah sukkah. And the Chavetz Chaim point out in the brackets here, remember, v'dafka, this is strictly speaking, sheyotza yitzia gemura. This is only if between each time you mamish left the sukkah, u'kamoisha kasavdu, like I wrote, avalim yotza lasei srachav, if you went because you had to go to the Beis HaKisei, oy lahavi davar l'sukkah, or to go get a sefer, or to go get the salt, ein tzarech levarich, then you wouldn't have to make another leishev, sharei lo yisiach daitoi, because you didn't mamish leave the sukkah, you weren't mesiach das from the sukkah. But again, according to these Rishonim, you would make 50, 60 brachas of leishev b'sukkah every day. If you go out of the sukkah and you mesiach das, the next time you come to the sukkah, regardless of whether you bring cake with you and you're eating, you might not be eating anything at all. You're not drinking anything. But you're going out and you're spending time in the sukkah. That's a mitzvah. You should make a leishev. Nevertheless, says the Chavetz Chaim, minig kala olam, it's the minig of the ganze Welt. Kedas ha-poiskim, like the other poiskim, believe this is the Rabbeinu Tam, she'eino mevarchem ela b'shas achila. It's the minig of the Welt that we only make a bracha b'shas achila. When do we make a leishev b'sukkah? When we go out to eat. We bring a piece of cake with us. We bring pasabah b'kisnin, especially we bring pasabah b'kisnin, yoiser mikabeya, even if we're not, right? That's what we learned back in Sif Tezvav. We said on Kuf Daled Amud Aleph, we said if you have pasabah b'kisnin and you eat yoiser mikabeya, even if you're not kaveya suda, the minig is that you make a leishev b'sukkah. Chavetz Chaim said you should sit in the sukkah a little bit even after you finish eating the cake, so that there's the mitzvah of the yeshiva in the sukkah as well. But that's the minig of the Welt. We don't make a bracha if we're not eating. You go out to the sukkah to Chazar Mishnah Berurah, you don't make a leishev b'sukkah. Even if you go out to the sukkah and you're not eating anything, and you're going to sit there learning for an hour, and then you're going to eat breakfast, Eina Mavarchim, we don't make a bracha. I was mekayim the mitzvah of yeshiva sukkah this whole time. The svira lahu, these Rishonim hold the bracha shemavarchim achar kach al ha'achila hi paiteras hakoil. The leishev that you're going to make at the time that you eat, it patters all of the other yeshivas hasukkah. Shehi ha'ikr, because somehow the eating in the sukkah is the ikr. V'hi paiteras ha'shena v'atiyol v'alimud. So eating in the sukkah, the bracha that you make on the leishev, when you eat in the sukkah, it patters the sleeping in the sukkah, it patters the relaxing in the sukkah, it patters everything. Shekulam tfeilim la. The Kasva Akrainim, the Akrainim write, the Nachan Adavar, it is proper, Lotzeis Gam Dasa Paiskim Rishonim, that we should try to be Mekayim, the Shita of the other Rishonim, V'loi Leishev Kach B'li Bracha, and you should not sit in the sukkah without a bracha. V'alkein, therefore, Tekef B'vayim Mibeis HaKnesses, right when you come home from shul, Yevarech Al Davar Shul Mechameshes Minim. This is most easily understood, I think, on a Yom Tov day. You come home from davening, and like a lot of people do, maybe you're not eating the Suda right away. You have to prepare the Suda. You might not eat the Suda for 45 minutes, for an hour. But you're going to spend time in the Sukkah. So says the Chavetz Chaim, what you should do is, you should bring some cake, make a bracha on Pas HaBa B'Kisnin, v'yochal mimenu ma'at yoiser mikabeitza, and eat a little bit more than the volume of an egg. Eat yoiser mikabeitza, because that's the chiv, right? Chamesh hasaminim, what's the chiv? The chiv is yoiser mikabeitza. You eat yoiser mikabeitza, V'yavarech leishev basukah. Now this is interesting. What's the Chavetz Chaim saying here? The Chavetz Chaim is saying that you're eating pasabah b'kisnin, you're eating yoser mikabetza, you should make a leishev. Now back in Sifta in Ois Katan Tezvav, that was a suffix that the Mishnah Berurah spoke about. But the Mishnah Berurah said, but the minig is, if you're eating yoser mikabetza of chamesha sabinim, pasabah b'kisnin, even if you're not kaveh suda, the minig is to make a leishev and sit in the sukkah a little bit. That's what this person is doing. He came home from shul, he wants to sit in the sukkah. So take yoser mikabetza of pasabah b'kisnin, make a mezainis, make a leishev basukkah, and then sit in the sukkah. V'lo yivarich achakach b'shas achila. But then don't make another leishev when you start the Suda. How could you make another leishev? You can't make another leishev. You made one leishev and you weren't Mesiach Das in the middle. So the scenario that I want you to have in your mind over here, because I think a lot of people might make this mistake. You come home from a shul, you make kiddush in the sukkah, and you make a leishev, and you eat pasabah b'kistin. Now over there, it's mamish kriyas suda, we said, because you're making kiddush, even if you eat a kazayas. I think we said, even if you eat, well, no, he was talking about kebeya, and Ois Katan Tezvav. Yeah, you eat a ba'at yoser b'kebeya, and you make kiddush. So then you're using that as your kiddush b'makom suda. That's mamash kfiyus. But you make a leishev, and now you might be walking in and out of the sukkah. You're setting the table. You're bringing in dishes. This, that. But you never left a yitzia gemura. You were never mesiach das from the sukkah. So now when you actually start the suda and you make a moitzi, you can't make a leishev. You already made a leishev at the time that you made kiddush. So you can't make another leishev now. You didn't have a yitzia gemura. You didn't leave. And we see this more in Ois Katan Mem Zayin. Ois Katan Mem Zayin, Elo b'shas achila. The minig is that we only make a bracha b'shas achila. So says the Chavetz Chaim, V'im pamachas b'shas achila. If you made one bracha of leishev basukah at the time of your suda, v'lo yotza misukasei lases hasakav, and you never left the sukkah or yitzia gemura. You never left lases hasakav. You never left the sukkah to go get busy with other things, so that you were mesiach das from the sukkah. V'afim yotza misukasei, even if you did go out of the sukkah, raksha yadaita lachzer miyad, but you always planned on coming right back. Ain't tzarich levarich shenis leishev basukah. You don't make another leishev afilu emoichel sudishniya. So let's say it was Shabbos, and you came home after davening, you made a leishev, you sat in the sukkah, you ate a suda in the sukkah, you benched, you stayed in the sukkah, you learnt in the sukkah, you schmoozed with your wife in the sukkah, you played a game with the kids in the sukkah, you had a snack in the sukkah, you might have gone into the house once or twice to get a drink or to get a sefer, but the whole day you stayed in the sukkah, and you davened the mincha in the sukkah, and now it's time for Shalosh Hodis, or it's time for your next Yom Tov Suda. You never left. Says the Mishnah Berurah, even if it's time for another Suda, you can't make another leishev. You never left the Sukkah. You never mesiach das. It's a continuation of the first mitzvah. Therefore, says the Chavetz Chaim, if somebody stays the whole day in the sukkah, and he sleeps overnight in the sukkah, and he davens in the sukkah, and he never leaves the sukkah to get busy with something else. The only times that he leaves the sukkah, he has das that he's coming right back to the sukkah. Ein tzarich levarich, he doesn't have to make another bracha. Ein tzarich levarich, he doesn't make a bracha rak b'shas achila rishona, only by the first meal. And the Chavetz Chaim says in the Sharitzion Ois Katan Peches, afilu hayaken kol shivas hayamim. This is true even if this went on all 7 days of Sukkot. So you hear what's going on here. This guy came home the first night of Sukkot. He came home from shul. He sat down to his sukkah. He made a leishev. He ate the suda. After the suda, he learned for a while in the sukkah. Then he went to sleep in the sukkah. He got up in the morning and he has a minyan in his sukkah. After davening, he made kiddush in the sukkah. Then he ate the suda in the sukkah. Then he spent the whole day in the Sukkah. Then he davened in the Sukkah Mincha Ma'ariv. Now it's time for the night Suda, for the second night Suda. He never left the Sukkah. Doesn't make another bracha. Right? Now he goes and he has that Suda, and then he goes to sleep, and then he gets up in the morning, and he davens in the Sukkah, and then he eats a Suda, and he stays in the Sukkah. All 7 days of Sukkahs, if he never leaves the Sukkah, and he's never Mesiach Das in the Sukkah, he never makes another Leishev. Because he made a Leishev by the first Suda, and he was never Mesiach Das. He never had a Yitzhiyah Gemurah from the Sukkah, and he never was Mesiach Das from the mitzvah of Sukkah. So says the Chavetz Chaim, why should he ever make another bracha? That's according to this Shita. However, V'yesh Oimrim, we have a Rabbi Yaakov Emden who holds differently. V'yesh Oimrim Dekeven Sheyotze Ben Tayim, since he did go out of the Sukkah in the middle, Afilu al das lachzor miyad, even though when he went out he had das to come right back in, tzarich levarich b'shas achil shniya, you do make a bracha when you come to the next Suda. You don't make brachas in the middle every time you go out and come back in, but when it gets time to the next Suda, where there's already a new Kriyus, then Rabbi Yaakov Emden says you do make another bracha. Certainly if you go out to get involved in something else, or to go to shul to daven, then certainly you would make another bracha. I want to come back to this topic. First, let's see Ois Katan Memches over here, the final Ois Katan of Mishnah Berurah in the Siman. Achila, we make the bracha at the time of eating. Actually, wait a second. No, I'm actually not doing this Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Memches, because Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Memches, which is the final Ois Katan of Mishnah Berurah on this Siman, is actually most of the Mishnah Berurah on Kovav Amud Beis. So we're going to do that at the outset of the next shir. So I misspoke at the beginning of the shir when I said that we're going to conclude Siman Tafrei Shlamet Tes. We're not going to conclude it. So I'm going to leave you a little bit in the middle, because we saw Ois Katan Mem Vav and Ois Katan Mem Zayin in the Mishnah Berurah over here, where the Mishnah Berurah goes into the details and the mechanics of the mitzvah of Sukkah and the bracha of Leishev Basukkah, where there are a few things that jump out at us over here. One is in Ois Katan Mem Vav, the Chavetz Chaim is very clear. Every time you spend time in the Sukkah, every time you do Teshvu Kein Taduru, where you use your Sukkah in the manner in which you would use your house, even if you're not eating, you're being Mekayim the mitzvah of Sukkah. And therefore, really, all of that time is Mechayev a bracha. And you should be making a Leishev Basukkah on all of those activities. But the minig of the Welt is that we do not make a Leishev Basukkah on those types of activities. We don't make a Leishev Basukkah when we just go out to the Sukkah to learn. We don't make a Leishev Basukkah when we're just schmoozing with a friend in the Sukkah. Rather, we allow the Leishev Basukkah that we make by the Suda to cover that. Now, what gets complicated with that is, what happens if I go out to my Sukkah and I have a Suda, and I make a Leishev, and then at the end of the Sukkah, I leave the Sukkah Yitzhiyah Gemurah. I really leave the Sukkah, and I'm really Mesiach Das from the Sukkah. And now I come back to the Sukkah, and I'm not going to eat. I'm just going to spend an hour in the Sukkah learning. How is that time covered by a Leishev? What Leishev covered that time? So these are some things that jump out at us over here. I want to discuss them a little bit more at the outset of the next shir. I'm recording this shir on Erev Rosh Hashanah. This is the shir that the Olam Pashtus will be listening to. This is the Dirshu page for Tzom Gedalyah, but I'm recording it on Erev Rosh Hashanah, and therefore I'm going to wish everybody a ksiva v'ksiva tova, a good gebenched yard. The tefillah should be niskabel. It should be an uplifting Rosh Hashanah. It should be a successful Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbe should give us a gzar din l'tova, a ksiva v'chsima tova for us, for God's Klal Yisrael. But like I spoke out once in another shir, not just the ksiva v'chsima tova that we're asking the Rebbe to take care of us and give us parnasa and give us good health and give us happiness and give us all the things that we need and nachas from the kinder. All of those are very important. But like I say, when you read through Slichus, when you went to Slichus this morning, you see that when we respond to the Rebbeinu Shalom with Slichus, what are we asking the Rebbeinu Shalom for? We're asking the Rabbeinu Shalom to make Hadrat Torah Liyoshna. We're asking the Rabbeinu Shalom to reestablish us as a Mamleches Kayhana V'Goy Kadosh, to bring the Bias Goel Tzedek B'Meher V'Yameinu, that we should be Zoichet to be a Klal Yisrael, Sharu Yalad Masam in Eretz Yisrael, with a Beis HaMikdash, living a Torah-dika life, the way Klal Yisrael is supposed to be. So it's not this tunnel vision of just our needs that we're asking for. That's very, very narrow. That would be a very, very restricted thing that we're asking for. It's not even, in a sense, it's not even proper, because it's almost as if what we're asking the Rebbeinu Shalom is, yeah, we're okay in Galus, everything is fine, as long as we have Parnasa, as long as we have Gesund, as long as the kids are doing well, as long as everything works out. What do you mean? We're in Galus. This is not the way it's supposed to be. So what we're asking the Rebbeinu Shalom for is Gzeira Tova, a Ksiva V'Chsiva Tova, that the Rebbeinu Shalom should be Mezakos. We should be the door that brings Mashiach Tzidkenu. We should have Bias Goel Tzedek B'Meher V'Yameinu. Amen. See you next year. Be well.